Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about area formulas, and I want to make sure that we go through these so you kind of have the general formula, and I want to do at least one example with you so you kind of get an idea of how this works. So first of all, to do the area of a rectangle, I need to somehow know the length and the width. So the area is length times width. So let me give you an example of one. Let me draw a little rectangle here. Let's say this is 10 feet and this is 3 feet. So for the area, I'm going to do length times width. So this would be my length and this would be my width. So 10 times 3 would be 30. And because it's feet times feet, it's going to be feet squared for the answer. Okay, now if we deal with a square we can still do our area as length times width. The only difference is if it's a square, they happen to all be the same. So that means that even if you did this as width and length, that those are going to be the same measurements. So if I give you a picture of a square and tell you it's a square and tell you this side is 7 inches, that means you should automatically know that the other side has to be the same as well, so 7 inches. So to do my area with my length times my width, it'd be 7 times 7, which will be 49, and these are both inches, so it's going to be inches squared. Okay, now those are kind of basic ones you've probably seen quite a bit before. Parallelogram may be a little bit different. So when I do area, they always say it is the base times the height. So you usually see it written like this in a formula. So when they talk about the base would be the bottom length down here. The height is usually wherever you see a dashed line for the height. Usually there's a square at the bottom to show it's a 9-degree angle, but this is going to be your height. So if I have a parallelogram, let me draw one over here kind of quickly. So in this one I'll do a height of 10 centimeters and a base of 7 centimeters. So to do my area, I would do base times height. So this is my base and this is my height. So my base is 7, height is 10. So 10 times 7 is 70. And if these are both centimeters, then it's going to be centimeters squared. Okay, now let's go to rhombus. So rhombus, you're still going to follow that base times height because rhombus is a kind of parallelogram. So it follows the same formula. Now the only difference is we know that if this is 8 miles down here, that the other side would also have to be 8 miles. They have to be the same. So if you know one length, you know the other. Okay, oops. The difference for us is, remember, you are still going to have to do it, have to find that height. So let's say our height was 10 inches. So that means the area is going to be base times height. So my base is 8 and my height is 10. And both inches. So this is going to be 80 inches squared. So again, even though you know this measurement out here is 8, you have to use the height and you have to use the base. Okay, one more piece we're going to look at, or two more, I guess, is triangle and circle. So with triangle, my formula is 1/2 times the base times the height. Some people actually write it like this: base times height divided by 2. I actually think this one's easier, but you can use either one and it will come out the same. So if I have this triangle, I might have the base is 5 millimeters, or excuse me, the height is, and then maybe the base is 6 millimeters. So to do my area, I'm going to use this formula just so you can see how this works. But the base is 6, the height is 5, and divided by 2. So on the top, this part right here, 6 times 5 is going to be 30. And if I divide that by 2, it's going to be 15. So my area is going to be 15, and it's millimeters squared. Okay, always this 2. The way I always remember it is that it's 2 dimensions. So if it's 2 dimensions, it's always going to be a 2 there. Okay, now sometimes with a triangle, you might get lucky and have one that looks like this. The difference to me in this problem is this side would be my height. So let's say that's 10 centimeters, and let's say this is 13 centimeters. So the good news is if it has a right angle, it has that little 9-degree angle, this is going to be your height, and that's going to be your base. So 13 times 10 divided by 2. So 13 times 10 is 130. If I take 130 and divide it by 2, that's going to be 65. So my area is going to be 65 centimeters squared. Okay, last shape we're going to look at is a circle. Now with a circle, you usually have something that's marked here. That's usually your radius. Do remember if it does happen to go through the center and goes all the way across, that's going to be the diameter. So the area formula is pi times radius squared. Now most of the time people usually use pi as 3.14. That's the rounded version of it. So that'll be the part that we'll use a little bit. But I want to show you a couple of these so you can kind of see how this works. So if I have a circle and the radius that I have is 4 feet. So if I do my area would be pi times your radius squared. So radius squared means that that number right here gets multiplied by itself twice. So that basically means 4 times 4, which would be 16. So when people write this, you'll see them do one of two things. Either they'll write the area is 16 pi, and this one would be feet squared. Or if I put in 3.14 in there for pi, so 16 times 3.14 is going to give me 50.24 feet squared. So either one of those, depending on the kind of answer you have, would be acceptable. Now the other thing we have sometimes is they might give us a circle, but they might tell us that this whole thing is 12 miles. So that means if the diameter is 12, that means the radius has to be half of that, which would be 6. And then that would be what you'd plug into this formula. So pi times 6 squared. So if I did 6 squared, 6 times 6 would be 36. So you could leave it as 36 pi miles squared. Or if I wanted to take out that pi and put in 3.14, be 113.04 miles squared. So either one of those would be acceptable answers. Again, sometimes you have to look at what they give you so you kind of know what to mess with. Okay, next part we're going to deal with is going to be surface area and volume.